Idaho Matters podcast is brought to you by St. Luke's On-Demand Virtual Care, which allows patients to see a provider from their home using a computer or smartphone with on-demand care for common ailments, such as a cough, sore throat, or a sinus issue. More information at stlukesonline.org.
Boise State Public Radio and Duck Club Entertainment present the Charlie Hunter Trio.
Charlie Hunter Trio, everybody.
Wednesday, March 18th at the Shrine Social Club in Boise. Blending jazz, funk, blues, and rock, Hunter is a guitarist, producer, and bandleader who will present his unique finger-picking technique on custom hybrid guitars. Tickets are available now at theduckclub.com.
From the studios of Boise State Public Radio News, I'm Gemma Gaudette. This is Idaho Matters. Over the past few years, many Idaho homeowners have opened their mailboxes to find something unsettling, an insurance bill that's jumped dramatically, or a letter saying their policy won't be renewed. Now, across the country, insurers say a combination of wildfires, climate risk, and higher rebuilding costs are driving up homeowners' insurance prices. Here in Idaho, new data from the State Department of Insurance shows average homeowners' premiums rose more than 37% between 2022 and 2024, and thousands of policies have not been renewed. Now, at the same time, many homeowners say they don't understand why their rates are going up or what they could do to lower them. There's now a bipartisan group of lawmakers trying to address this issue. One proposal moving through the legislature, House Bill 618, known as the Wildfire Insurance Transparency Act, would require insurance companies to disclose the wildfire risk scores and models they use to help determine homeowners' rates and coverage decisions. This new bill is co-sponsored by lawmakers from both parties, including Boise Democrat Monica Church and Sandpoint Republican Mark Sauter. The two represent very different parts of our state, but both say their constituents are feeling the pressure of rising insurance costs. And we're having both of them join us live today to talk more about this. I want to welcome both of you to the program.
Thanks, Gemma.
Thank you. Mark Sauter here.
And it's nice to have both of you with us. Representative Church, let me begin with you. You spent much of this past year asking Idaho homeowners to share their insurance experiences. So what kinds of stories have you been hearing that convinced you that this was a problem the legislature needed to address?
Yeah, thanks for that. This was brought to me actually by a constituent who lives in my district up on the Mesa in, kind of the downtown Boise area. And they had a community Firewise program. They were doing a lot of home hardening, a lot of community hardening mitigation efforts, and even had created kind of a fire pod and had the Boise Fire Department come out and, kind of practice an evacuation and all of this. And yet their insurance rates were still going up. Premiums were doubling year over year. And a lot of them were finding non-renewals based on whatever provider they were using. And so not only that story, which led me to ask about other stories, but then stories about folks who had, second homes, cabins in Garden Valley or Cascade or McCall that they hoped to move into once they retired, that were now getting these cancellations or non-renewals, and they didn't know what they were going to do. I mean, a home without insurance is certainly not where anybody wants to be. So even yesterday, I talked to a gentleman in my district whose insurance rate went up 120% from last year, in 1 year. And so all of these stories, combined with those that are just seeing an incremental increase, led me to think I've got to find some like-minded colleagues, and we got to address this.
And Representative Sauter, your district in North Idaho has a lot of forested areas as well as wildfire exposure. So what have homeowners in your part of the state been telling you about insurance availability as well as cost?
Well, I too was contacted by a constituent last summer, and kind of the woman walked me through her story. It started with a letter of non-renewal, and then her interest was to continue to have a relationship with the same insurance company. So kind of walked down that path of her meeting with the insurance people, having them do property inspections, having her go through a considerable amount of work around her property to try and somehow salvage I'll even call it a relationship with her insurer. Ultimately, she did that, but she has multiple properties. And like a lot of people, have bundled all of her coverage together. So losing one property was really going to be a problem for her. Plus, it was the property where she lived. So that just made it that much more problematic. When I started doing some work with the Department of Insurance, I found that there are several zip codes in my area that have between a 5 and 15% non-renewal history. Typically, it's about 1%. So that became an issue. And then I retired from the fire service and out of state. And then I came here and started volunteering, and then ultimately did administrative work and even fire prevention work for the fire districts up in Sandpoint. And I went out and did property inspections. So I've kind of lived this. I've helped people get insurance. I've helped write reports so they can convince an insurance company that they have a property that's insurable. So I've worked on all that, and there's really just kind of a void of information. So that's what drove me to the bill and trying to get some transparency, trying to get some information from the insurance companies about what's important. And then in my previous fire experience, I knew a lot about the Insurance Services Office, which is a national organization, and they rate fire departments across the country. And I started to look at that. And in Idaho, we have Idaho Survey and Rating Board, and I had a couple meetings with them and asked them about how they rate communities and over what they do for wildland mitigation. Not necessarily just the wildland fires, forest fire type stuff, but what happens when there's a fire and around a built out community, but that happens to be in the woods. So how they would rate that and rate a fire department in that kind of a situation. So anyway, it's a multi-pronged, issue, and it's a multi-pronged approach. But I think getting back to the bill here, I think House Bill 618 is a start of what can happen. And where I'm from, we don't have any Firewise neighborhoods. There's quite a bit of independence in my area. And my interest in this is that if we can give some fire departments and the people that they protect just some solid information on how they are rated and what's important to those that do this for business, i.e. the insurance companies, then people can make some good solid decisions based on that. But for the time being, we don't have a lot of a foundation other than looking at some national standards that may or may not apply. And that's what I'm after is let's provide some good information for the people that live in North or across the state. And then they let them start to make some good decisions based on that. But it starts with information. So thank you.
And absolutely. And Representative Church, as I mentioned, the Idaho Department of Insurance says the average premiums increased by more than 37%. This was statewide between 2022 and 2024. So before we get to the specifics of the bill, when you've spoken to homeowners, I mean, do they even understand why those increases are happening? And because it seems that there's a lack of transparency in a lot of this.
Yeah, no, thanks, Gemma. One of the things that I found in the last year is that most homeowners are struggling with this alone, that they don't realize that it's happening across the state or even to their neighbors. So that data call that you mentioned up at the top from the Department of Insurance, what it found was that not only is this happening across the state, but the places where we saw the highest premium increases were actually in the city of Boise, in the city of Caldwell, in the city of Ketchum and Bellevue, in the city of Coeur d'Alene, right? These were built out places, not places out in the middle of nowhere, right? These were communities. Meridian, Idaho, having the second highest, increase in premiums between 2022 and 2024. And so, in talking to folks, I think the first thing was, one, that we're all in this together and that this is happening across the board. And then to the second point, everyone was receiving the same information, that it was fire, that they were a fire risk. And that's when, Mark and I started working together, and then started working with and communicating with lawmakers from other Western states who have passed similar legislation to what we're trying to do, and realizing that fire risk means something different to every insurance provider, and without providing the modeling, just like I'm a public school teacher, without providing the rubric for your grade, you cannot expect anyone to do better or to even know what they're being graded on. And so, no, people didn't know why, and fire risk didn't make a lot of sense if you're talking about Meridian, Caldwell, West Boise. And so, that's where we came in with this bill, which, as I mentioned, is very close to bills that we're seeing across all the Western states.
So let's talk about the bill itself. In simple terms, Representative Church, what would House Bill 618 require insurance companies to do that they don't have to do right now?
So the first thing is that it would have to explain in plain language your wildfire risk score. So, whatever scoring mechanism an insurance provider uses, they would have to explain that score. So that could include everything from what Representative Sauter was talking about with the insurance score as it relates to your proximity to, a local fire department, or the availability or proximity of a fire district. Then it would explain factors that raised your score. So that could be the age of your roof, or it could be, issues that maybe you don't even know about related to being close to a, WUI area, or, it could be related to fires from 2 years ago and maybe you just moved to the area. And then if your score is updated at any point in time, you would have the opportunity to know about that, or you also, as a homeowner, or even a renter, anyone that is getting insurance, you would be able to provide what you have done, what mitigating efforts you've done, new roofing, defensible space, fire-resistant landscaping, et cetera, to your insurance provider, and then they would need to provide any list of possible discounts or other mitigation efforts that you might be eligible for discounts if you were to do. And then the other part of it is that all of these models, again, none of this information would be, what's the word I'm looking for, Mark? The insurance companies.
Oh, proprietary.
Proprietary information, thank you. None of the information would be, the proprietary information would be out there, but all of those scoring rubrics would be available at the Department of Insurance online, publicly posted for homeowners to look at. And then you would also have a formal right to appeal. Now, we're not taking, we're not telling the insurance companies that they have to do anything besides provide the rubric that they use to score people, and to provide any discounts that might be available in a public place, i.e. the Department of Insurance. But we are saying that in that transparency, individuals should have the right to appeal their score. So I think those are, kind of all the steps in this bill.
And one of the interesting things, and maybe Representative Sauter, I've got just a few minutes left with both of you, is that the bill doesn't cap premiums. It doesn't force insurers to write policies. What it does is it focuses on transparency, as Representative Church just laid out. Why was that approach important to take?
Well, we wanted to have a light, kind of the light touch of government. We also wanted something that would work. And for us to lasso the insurance companies and say, hey, you have to do your business this way, that's not the light touch that I think Idaho would appreciate. We appreciate the fact that We have, dozens of insurance carriers across our state that insure our houses. And if not for that, we'd be in a real pickle. I mean, I don't think there's that many houses that are not mortgaged. And if you can't get insurance, you're going to be in trouble with your mortgage broker. So anyway, there is a relationship between the carriers and the property owners, and we need to appreciate that. So I call it, my little catchphrase for this is, we're just asking for the ingredients of how they do things. We're not asking for the recipe. We're not asking for how, one of the insurance carriers can make a better profit in our state or better protect people in our state than another one. But we are asking, what's important? Can you give the fire departments and the individual homeowners and the neighborhoods some insight into what would be, the best way to spend their money? If it's collectively to create a large fire break around a neighborhood rather than having, one or two people in a neighborhood of 5-acre homes, home sites, then let's get that out there. And, if it really doesn't matter what one homeowner does, let's get that out there so we can look at this and people can make good decisions. So, but without it, you're just kind of shooting in the dark. And I don't think that's really efficient or effective. And after all, I know it's in everybody's best interest to avoid a large campaign type fire. Insurance companies don't want it. And that our homeowners certainly don't want any part of it. Drives up insurance costs, drives up damages, loss, and it's tough on all the fire departments as well. So collectively, I think it's just in everyone's best interest to avoid one of these big fires or even a smaller fire that in a neighborhood. And if we can take some steps to prevent it, prevention has always been, the number one word in the fire service. Is that's where you spend your best money is on prevention. If you're going out to emergencies, that's a tougher way to spend your dollar. So
before I let you go, Representative Church, the House Business Committee is scheduled to hear the bill this week, I believe. So what happens next in the legislative process?
Yeah, tomorrow at 1:30, House Business is scheduled to have a hearing on this bill. It has been printed, so that hearing will be tomorrow. We are asking any homeowners that want to send in their testimony or even would like to come and testify or testify remotely to do so. Again, that's House Bill 618. If it passes through the House Business Committee, it'll go to the House floor. And then if it passes off the House floor, our Senate colleagues who have agreed to run it on that side will take it through the process over there. And we'll be asking folks to do the same thing, to share their stories and to come and let lawmakers know that this is something that they want.
Well, I want to thank both of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to talk with us about this. We've been speaking with Idaho State Representatives Monica Church and Mark Sauter about House Bill 618. It's a proposal aimed at bringing more transparency to how wildfire risk is factored into homeowners insurance here in Idaho. The House Business Committee is going to take that bill up tomorrow. You've been listening to the Idaho Matters podcast from Boise State Public Radio. To stay in touch, you can find quick Idaho daily news every morning when you subscribe to the Connector podcast. And if this episode meant something to you, text it to a friend.